Hello and a very good afternoon. You're watching Verdict 2016 with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Let's begin with today's Verdict headlines. 61 constituencies in Assam vote in the second and final phase of polling. 15% votes cast so far. Voting underway in 31 seats in West Bengal as part of the second part of part 1 of phase 1 of the elections. Nearly 20% voting registered so far. DMK releases manifesto for Tamil Nadu elections, promises total prohibition, no freebies. This time, party also underlines its commitment to appoint a Lokayukta. BJP releases second list of candidates for Tamil Nadu. Party state president Tamilisai Soundarajan to fight from Virugampakam. Our top focus on the bulletin this afternoon. The second and last phase of polling in Assam is underway right now. Voting is on for the remaining 61 seats in the constituencies across lower and central Assam. 15% polling has been registered till 10:30 today. The Congress, the BJP, AGP, BPF alliance and AIUDF are locked in a keen contest for the 126 assembly seats. 525 candidates are in the fray today. Over 1 crore people will exercise their franchise at 12,699 polling stations. With over 50,000 polling personnel deployed, security has been tightened across the constituencies, particularly those in 4 Bodoland territorial area districts where NBFB ultras are active, and in Golpara district, which witnessed a bomb blast recently. Strict vigil is being maintained in Dhubri district bordering Bangladesh and Buxa sharing border with Bhutan.
कि ये फेस्टिवल ऐसा है सारे जाति धर्म से सबसे ऊपर अपने मुल्क का, मैं समझता हूँ एक गणतांत्रिक जो सिस्टम है उसका सबसे बड़ा ईद का दिन है.
Well, joining me for a chat right now from the ground is our correspondent Vishal Dahiya. Vishal, give us a sense of what's really happening as far as today's polling is concerned. Another big day as far as the politicians of Assam are concerned.
Well, yes, Frank, it is a big day for the politicians of Assam. In fact, 525 candidates, as you say, are in the fray. And prominent amongst them are Badruddin Ajmal, whom we just heard speaking after casting his vote. In addition to that, senior leaders of the Congress like Cabinet Ministers Rakibul Hussain, the former Chief Minister of Assam and AGP leader Praful Kumar Mahanto, and BJP leader Himanta Biswa Sharma, who moved into BJP just a short while or just a few months before the elections from Congress. So these are the top names who are in the fray in this phase. As far as the voting figures are concerned, Frank, they're quite enthusiastic voters out here. The figures are quite high as of now. At 11 a.m., what we are being told by the State Election Commission authorities, the total voting percentage in all these 61 assembly constituencies was somewhere around 36% now. There is a give and take of plus and minus 1% out here because the data keeps on, getting updated every half an hour. But first 4 hours, 36% is what is an indicator which the even Election Commission authorities say that this might be almost same, if not exactly, then almost same as it was there in the first phase. That was somewhere around 84%. And we can still see long queues of people at polling booths, both male and female voters, almost a similar length of the queue, and it's evident in all kind of areas, be it the urban voters or be it the rural voters. We've just been to a rural polling station, and there also we saw a huge line, a huge turnout, and a long line of voters waiting to cast their vote. This even after 5 hours have passed since the voting began. So a clear indication that the voters are turning up in large numbers to cast their vote. We'll have to wait and watch whether or not this day's figure, will cross the mark which has been set in the first phase by the voters of the Upper Assam.
You know, talking about the first phase of polling, Vishal, of course, indeed, the voter turnout was high, and it looks like even in the second phase, it looking at what we've seen thus far, it looks like the voter turnout could be high in the second phase as well. But, you know, these 61 seats that go to that are polling today, how are these different from the first phase of polling where we saw 65 seats go to polls?
Well, quite different. In fact, if you look at the issues, the local issues and the kind of strategy which the political parties have adopted in the second phase of the polling, it's almost, opposite to what exactly happened in the first phase, wherein in the first phase we saw both the major national parties trying to woo T communities, the tribal voters, and the Congress was trying to defend its base in the Upper Assam. The BJP was trying to make inroads. We saw both the chief ministerial candidates, contesting their election in the first phase from Upper Assam itself. But in the Lower Assam, the scenario is slightly different. The one issue which gained prominence during the entire campaign in the Lower Assam was the issue of illegal migrants, was the issue of the way this particular issue was raised by both the national parties. There was a bitter war of words between both Congress and BJP, the Congress and AIUDF, and the BJP and AIUDF as well. All of them were blaming each other for not doing enough to resolve this problem and just, scoring political brownie points and trying to woo the voters based on this. But then in this space, we've also seen that apart from this issue, the voters are also concentrating on local issues. For example, the basic amenities like roads, water services, power supply, much better employment opportunities, much better infrastructure for health, for education. These are the issues which the locals say is what they will, cast their votes on. And in addition to that, one more very prominent factor which we've seen plays heavily on the minds of the voters before they cast their vote is the standing or the image of the local candidate. That is also something which is taken into account by the local voters. So it's local issues plus the candidate's image as well as the promises made by the political parties themselves as to kind of government they will give to the state is a mix or based on which the voters are standing there in queues to cast their vote.
You know, Vishal, you've been in Assam for a few weeks now and you've been getting a sense of what's happening on the ground and what the voter really thinks as far as some of these issues are concerned. But, you know, how much of an impact is really the anti-incumbency factor going to play on the minds of the voter and also the infiltration, issue that the BJP has been harping about for a while now? How much is it really striking a chord with the voter on the ground?
Well, it is indeed a big factor for the Congress party, and this was clearly visible in the first phase itself when we saw the chief minister, after casting his vote, Tarun Gogoi, in the first phase, came out of the polling booth and, in response to the BJP's campaign that the state wants change, the chief minister immediately after casting his vote said that even I do want change. Change is constant. So clearly, the one first thing which the Congress has been contesting or rather, basing its strategy on in this election in Assam is anti-incumbency. Though claims have been made by Congress leaders, both at state level and national level, that anti-incumbency will not be a major factor. But all of us know that having ruled a state for 15 long continuous years, it is going to be a difficult task for the ruling party to, defend its fort out here and make a comeback for the fourth consecutive term.
All right, Vishal Dahiya, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us there with those details. We'll come back to you during the course of the day to get the latest from Assam, where the second and final phase of polling is going on. Meanwhile, moving on to the other poll-bound state now of West Bengal. The second part of the first phase of elections is underway across 31 seats in West Bengal. 163 candidates, including 21 women, are in the fray in the seats that fall in West Midnapur, Bankura and Burdwan districts. 19.95% of voting was seen so far till 10:30 a.m. Five-time CPIM MLA from Narayangarh and leader of the opposition Surya Kanta Mishra, senior state Congress leader Manas Bhunia from Sabang, and some of the others are also among the major candidates in this phase. Now, polling for the 18 assembly constituencies was held on April 4th. The Bengal Assembly has a total strength of 294. Around 70 lakh people are eligible to cast their votes in this phase. A triangular contest between the ruling Trinamool Congress, Left Front Congress combined, and BJP is being witnessed this time around. Our correspondent Pranav Goswami is on the ground there in West Bengal, tracking every development as people go out and vote. Pranav, just take us through what's happening there in one of the polling stations that you're at today.
Today in morning time, we saw the large number of people. They turned up just to avoid scorching sun, because this is extremely, the weather is extremely hot, and the temperature has gone up to 42%. So now there are less number of voters. You can see they're standing in queues and they are waiting for their turn. If you talk about other issues, from some polling station, some poll violence incidents are also taking place, especially in Jamhuri Assembly, which comes under Vardhaman district. 2 bombs were found, and TMC and CPM workers clashed also in and allegedly TMC workers beaten up one CPM worker, and he's injured. So there are some disturbances. Reports are also coming from different polling station. And Election Commission, though the security arrangements are very tight, and Election Commission had received a few complaints regarding the manipulation of some EVM machines, and also some voters were also complaining that the EVM machines were not properly working. So Election Commission has decided to scrutinize those polling stations where the voting is recorded more than 90%, or if it is less than 10%. And Election Commission will examine those polling stations also. As far as issues are concerned, we have been saying that opposition parties in this election have been targeting Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. And this is the first time when Mamata Banerjee is facing serious corruption charges. But Mamata Banerjee is saying that her government has done tremendous development work which never took place during left regime. So these are the political equation, but this is certainly going to be a very, very important phase of polling, because 31 seats which comes under 3 districts. In these 31 seats, TMC had done extremely well, and they won 18 seats out of 31. So Mamata Banerjee's reputation is at stake in this round of polling, certainly.
Indeed, Mamata Banerjee's reputation is at stake at the moment, Pranav. But talking about these 31 seats, what are the issues really on the ground? You did speak about a couple of issues, but really, what are the voters saying, and what is it that they believe that they're going to vote for this time around?
Normally in West Bengal, elections are fought on the ideological basis. But this time, first time, we are seeing that apart from ideology, the corruption is a very prominent issue, apart from the local issues like development and all. But people are complaining that they are not having a proper infrastructure facilities. They are deprived with health. If you talk about health services, education, there are so many other local issues also. But TMC government is claiming that this government has initiated so many schemes like Kanyashri scheme and Yuvashri scheme. These schemes are mainly for school-going girls, and the government is giving scholarships to school-going girls. And then for unemployed youth also, there's a scheme which has been started by Mamata Banerjee, where unemployed youths are getting financial assistance from government. But then also opposition parties are saying that during Mamata Banerjee's tenure, no development work has taken place. So these are the allegations and counter allegations which are being heard during the election campaign and during this election. So this is certainly going to be a very important election. And as far as BJP is concerned, BJP is hoping to make it a triangular contest.
Indeed. As far as polls in West Bengal are concerned, we've seen a history of violence associated with polling in West Bengal. Have there been any reports of any violence today? What kind of security apparatus is in place to ensure that polling goes on smoothly?
Yeah, as I mentioned that we've received some reports and some other reports are also coming where TMC and left party workers are having some clashes. And as I told you that the security personnel also found 2 bombs in Jamuria constituency, which comes under Bardhaman. And these sort of small incidents are also taking place. But as far as if you overall, if you see, then this election process is currently going very smoothly, and overall this
Okay, we seem to have lost
quite
the line
peaceful.
there with Pranav, but we'll try and rejoin him later on during the day. For now, let's slip into a short break. We'll bring you news from the other poll-bound states in South India as well on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
I'm Amritan Shura and you're watching Constitutionally Yours.
Political will is also missing.
अगर आप देखेंगे तो लिटरेसी रेट बहुत बढ़ी है।
यहाँ पे हम लोग consolation prize नहीं दे रहे।
Child labor is heavily required. So how to tackle that problem?
If there is violation of any provision, any law, judiciary will take actions.
Join us as we try to understand contemporary issues related to the Constitution. Watch Constitutionally Yours on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Let's get you some news now from Tamil Nadu. Well, the DMK has released its manifesto for the Tamil Nadu elections. There are no freebies this time around, but there are big promises, including complete prohibition. Here's a report from Akhilesh Suman.
In the presence of all state leaders, DMK Chief Karunanidhi released his party manifesto. The DMK has promised waiver of all loans to farmers and students, along with the total prohibition of alcohol in the state.
It will raise the downtrodden to the satisfied level. They are expecting so many expectations for the poor people, downtrodden, and all the wishes are fulfilled by the manifesto.
To project his intent for a clean administration, the DMK chief also promised the Lokayukta for the state. There has been no Lokayukta in Tamil Nadu in the last 5 years of Jayalalitha's rule, despite demands from other political parties and NGOs.
See, the salient features are it promises full-fledged prohibition, and it promises Right to Services Act, and it promises Lokayukta. It promises waiving of all education loans from school to college level. Plus, it promises industrial corridor from Chennai to Tuticorin. So these are all the salient features of this manifesto. There is only one freebie, that too in a focused way it was promised, which is farmers who are not able to afford smartphones to know about the weather conditions, they will be given financial assistance. So except that, the cell phones for farmers, no freebie was actually given.
Apart from that, the manifesto also promises the following: Rupees 3 lakh for converting huts into concrete houses, desalination plants in all coastal areas, marriage assistance program with 4 gram of gold and Rupees 60,000, ST status for fishermen, and milk in midday meal scheme, among others. This is the first manifesto in the state after the announcement of poll dates. While, as policy, AIADMK will not come out with any manifesto, Party chief Jayalalitha had announced her promises verbally in her first election rally in her constituency in Chennai on Saturday.
DMK has presented two types of manifesto, one for the whole state and another each for each district. And they have kept the controversial figures like A. Raja and Dayanidhi Baran out of the whole program. And also Mr. Alagiri, who is in the family struggle, is also out of the frame. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Sabha Television with camera person Om Prakash in Chennai.
And joining me for a chat right now is our correspondent Akhilesh Suman from Tamil Nadu. Well, Akhilesh, as far as the DMK's manifesto is concerned, take us through some of the key takeaways of the manifesto.
Actually, see, if you go through the manifesto, there are, as I told, that there are two types of manifesto. One for the overall rebuilding. They are telling that rebuilding is required in Tamil Nadu. So this rebuilding connects to the students in the first place, the youth in the second place, and then to the farmers in the third place, and then women in the fourth place, and then industry in the fifth place, and then overall demand for democratization and transparency in the sixth stage. So you can understand that whatever you think about a state, there is provision in that manifesto, right from Lokayukta, provision of Lokayukta, and up to 16 lakh students will be getting laptops and iPads like instruments with 3G and 4G connection with 10 GB download capacity per month. So you can understand that one, which is utilitarian provision like laptop and 3G and 4G connection with the data card, and also like demand from the farmers who has been telling that waive our loans, and also from the women who had been feeling that their families is getting destroyed because of the easy availability of the liquor at every corner of the state. Go in the village, go in the town, go in the big cities, everywhere you will find a liquor shop, right from very early in the morning to the late night. So it is a culture of commercialization, the cheap commercialization culture of this has been prevalent in last 5 years. People are telling, and that the DMK is coming out with a program that enhances the capacity of the state in manner of human resource development, in manner of industrial output, and also in the manner of the capacity of fishermen to fish more and be insured. So I think that all sections of society can find themselves connected with this manifesto in the very first look of the whole book.
Indeed. Yeah. You know, interestingly, Akhilesh, what has happened this time around is it's very rare for political parties in Tamil Nadu not to give out freebies. No freebies have been announced this time around.
Actually, Jayalalitha has given so many freebies that one cannot afford to go more than that, because Jayalalitha has given mixies, Jayalalitha has given grinders, Jayalalitha has given wall clocks, and whatever you think about a middle class and poor families. And before that, Mr. Karunanidhi has also given color TV to the households on the basis of ration cards. So freebies cannot be given. It is out of the state capacity, and I think that DMK has done very rational thing by imposing prohibition and also going rational in giving the freebie. So the whole focus of the budget is enhancing the capacity of a state by ensuring transparency and also by facilitating the youth, farmers and the fishermen to work more and get more. It is a provision for increasing the MSP of the product from the farms. So in that way you can say that yes, it is a ploy to please the farmers. There is a provision for fishermen in this that they can get some sort of insurance. There is also to touchy issue like Tamil issue. The DMK has said that we will try to make Tamil as a language in central government offices. This is a very emotive and touchy issue for all Tamilians. And then again, there is a cry for Sri Lankan Tamils who are living in Jaffna and other areas of Sri Lanka for the human rights violation against the government, last government by the Rajapakse. So these are mixture of emotive issue as well as economic issue. So I think DMK people are telling that DMK has quite balance between both economy and the politics, and I think that it is one of the champions of the Dravid movement in the past, and this manifesto shows a level of maturity that DMK has been facing for last many years. It was facing. It was become very unfamous because of the corruption who were the ministers in the central government, and those were not present. So DMK is trying all the way out to create an image of a development-oriented governance and development-oriented party with full of Dravidian politics and concern for Sri Lankan Tamils.
Indeed. You know, I want to draw your attention further to the fishermen issue as such, because that particular issue has seen gaining a considerable mileage of late over the last couple of years or so. You know, the AIADMK has been raising the issue. They have raised it with the Prime Minister as well. Now, the DMK too has not been silent as far as the fishermen issue is concerned. How is it that they're going to further address the fishermen problem?
Oh, first thing that what they have done, they're telling that all fishermen will come under one community that will call scheduled tribe. So fishermen will be put in scheduled tribe category. So they will get the benefits of scheduled tribe in the state, and as well as they will also try to get it enrolled in the central list of scheduled tribe. So it is one of the insurances that government DMK party is trying to give to the fishermen. As far as the question of relation with Sri Lanka in the fishermen problem is concerned, see, both the parties are playing to the gallery, because fishermen's issue is not only related to Sri Lanka, it is a domestic issue, because the technology being given to the fishermen as quite age-old technology, and both DMK and AIADMK government has to answer, including the central government, because the trawlers that have been given to the fishermen is age-old and it has been given to the central government. So next time when I will come with you, I will give you a full-fledged story that how these trawlers are destroying the credibility of Indian fishermen, especially from Tamil Nadu when they go to Sri Lankan waters. So DMK and AIADMK understand that this is a trivial issue, so they cannot go more than a limited distance on this issue. But the DMK has played a very good card by putting them in the scheduled tribes category.
Indeed. All right. Akhilesh Suman, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining us there with those details and putting things into perspective for us. Meanwhile, the BJP has announced its second list of 21 candidates for the Tamil Nadu elections. Tamilsai Soundararajan, president of the BJP's Tamil Nadu unit, is among 21 candidates announced by the party on Sunday. Soundararajan will be contesting the elections from Virugompakkam Assembly seat, while Purachi Kavidasan, who merged his Makkal Tamigam party with the BJP, will be contesting from Gandavara Kotai, a reserved seat for SC. The list was announced after deliberations of the Central Election Committee of the BJP. The party had released its first list of 54 candidates last month. Meanwhile, trouble is brewing in the former Union Minister G.K. Vasan-led Tamil Manila Congress over its decision to join hands with the DMDK People's Welfare Front. Senior leaders of the TMC have questioned the decision to align with the PWF and termed the move as against the goals of the party. There are indications that they may consider going back to the Congress. The voice of dissent became apparent when Vasan refused to rejoin the Congress party after TNCC chief EVKS Elangovan's open call to them. This a day after Vasan inked a pact with the DMDK PWF combined, which challenges both the AIADMK and the DMK. The development comes after a similar rebellion in the DMDK, which saw the ouster of the dissenters led by party propaganda secretary V.C. Chandrakumar. Well, that's it on this edition of Verdict 2016. See you again next time.